You're listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm Henry Acosta, the host for today. Our guest today is a licensed physiotherapist and a very successful entrepreneur. He created the Physio Co., a business that's aim is to help seniors live an active life by giving them a chance to stay mobile, safe, and happy. He was on HPR before and is returning today to talk about his new book called Culture is Everything, in which he talks about the struggles of starting up your own business and how he found his passion by creating it and creating a culture by it. He is also currently one of the best-selling authors on Amazon. His name is Tristan White. With all that said, hi Tristan, thank you so much for coming back to Health Professional Radio.
G'day Henry, fantastic to be back on with you and looking forward to a chat.
Yeah, and how did you get started into making this book and what inspired you?
Yeah, Henry, fantastic question. And so for the last 13 years, I've been working in a business called Physio Co., which helps seniors stay mobile, safe and happy, which we just mentioned. And building a team over a long period of time is a real challenge. It's a real challenging thing for any business owner or health professional. But I sort of learnt the hard way by not focusing on culture in the early days and not focusing on building a strong team, that it really didn't work very well. And so then I had a bit of a learning and understanding that focusing on culture and really obsessing over culture is something that can be very valuable in growing our team and our business. And over the years it worked, and we got to grow a bigger and more stronger team. And then people started asking me, how do you do it? How do you build a strong culture? And initially I would answer that question, Henry, with a very long and hard to understand response for anyone else. It made sense to me, but it made sense to no one else. And at that point, I realised I had to sort of take the time to document what I'd learnt and put it into a system which was easy enough for other people to follow. And that's where the idea from the book came from, was to share the learnings of the Physio Co. in an easy to follow way. And so I've been doing speeches and helping other people learn a strong culture, and now it's documented in a book, and that's the idea where it came from.
Yeah, that sounds really great, and I'm sure a lot of health professionals can learn from this book. And yeah, with that said, what can health professionals take away from this book?
Yeah, so Henry, I think there's two parts to the book. One is the story of a business that started from one person and has grown into a health team of more than 100 people. I think the struggles and the learnings and the struggles of how that has happened is a real opportunity for all health professionals who are employees in a business or in a team, and also managers and leaders of teams. I think the learnings from other people is really quite significant. And the second part is this idea of culture as a repeatable system. And I passionately believe that culture is not this airy-fairy idea where there's serendipitous interactions between people, and if you get it right with the right people, you have a great culture, and it's all very lucky, unscripted approach. I don't agree with that. I think there is a way that culture can be systemised, and you can get to a point where you can use a checklist to make sure the right steps are in place time and time again, which will help you create the foundations of a strong culture. And that's the idea that I present in the book, is that culture is everything, is the system that is a repeatable model that leaders and managers can put in place in their team to build on the foundations of a really strong culture.
Yeah, and for the leaders right now in the health professional field listening, what can you tell them to start their own culture in their field? And yeah, how can you change the culture if there's one set already?
Well, Henry, the 4 steps that are outlined, the culture is everything system, is discover the core, and that really involves understanding why does this team exist? What are we here for? And what is the purpose of this team? The second part is called document the future, and it's having a clear idea as to what the future will look like. And because it's very difficult for people in the team to follow along and be valuable team members if they don't understand what they're contributing to and what the vision will look like. So discover the core first and then document the future are the first 2 steps. The next step is execute relentlessly, and it's impossible to build a really strong team if you don't get those first steps right and then execute over and over and over, day in and day out, week in and week out over a long period of time to get the repeatedness of a strong culture. So that's the third step, and the fourth step is something called show more love, which some people will say might be familiar with, because building a strong culture sometimes is known as loving the team members as much as possible in some people's language. But I think there's a real system around that as well, including acknowledging people's welcome to the team, acknowledging their anniversaries of when they've been with the team for a period of time, making sure we are communicating with them in a regular way. So the four things that I think that are part of the culture of everything system: to discover the core, document the future, execute relentlessly, and show more love are the four parts of the system.
I've read that the Physio Co is one of the best places to work at, and it's been documented on the internet. For all our listeners right now, since Wayne already asked you this before, but we're going to ask it again, are there any misconceptions that you want to talk about with regards to businesses and with regards to building a culture?
I think one thing that's really important is that I'm a committed concept of using this idea of being a 1-minute manager. And I think at the Physio Co, we're all 1-minute managers. And what that means is that we find every opportunity we can to catch people doing something right. And when we catch people doing something right, we make sure we communicate it in a clear and positive way to reinforce that great behaviour. Similarly, if we identify someone who is not necessarily acting with the behaviours consistent with what we expect, or not doing what is required of their job, then we're very committed to what we call a 1-minute redirect, and that is a respectful but clear and honest piece of feedback that says, hey, let's talk about that piece of behaviour. It wasn't what we expected. Let's understand it, and then let's encourage to get back on track to the behaviour that will result in a praise in the future. So I think the concept is that it's a relentlessly committed approach to acknowledging great behaviours and redirecting behaviours that aren't quite aligned with where you'd like to be. And if you do that day after day, then that's when you can have this really respectful and positive culture, which will also be a great place to work.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing that information. And I know a lot of people can take away from what we just talked about. And for anyone who's interested in getting your book and learning more about culture is everything, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, so if you're looking for an ebook, a Kindle copy, Amazon.com is the best way to find it. But if you're here in Australia and you'd like a paperback copy, head over to my website, which is tristanwhite.com.au, and you can grab it. You can download a free chapter of the book from that site at tristanwhite.com.au, and if you like the first chapter and you'd like to get a copy of the book, you can order one on that site as well.
Awesome. Well, that's all our questions for today, and thank you so much for coming back to Health Professional Radio, Tristan.
You're welcome, Henry. Have an awesome day, mate.
And that was Tristan White, licensed physiotherapist and currently one of the best-selling authors on Amazon. He founded the Physio Co and wrote the book Culture is Everything. He just finished talking about his new book and how following his passion led him to success. If you like this interview, transcripts and archives are available at www.hbr.fm. We are on all major social media platforms, so don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe. We're also available for download on SoundCloud and iTunes. I'm Henry Acosta, and you're listening to Health Professional Radio.